includes military cooperation as well. A good cooperation with these countries, politically, economically, even militarily.
The growing alignment reflects a partnership that has strengthened over the past decade, particularly in response to Western pressure. Iran has supplied Shahed drones to Russia, which Moscow has used in the war in Ukraine. The two countries also previously backed Bashar al-Assad's government in Syria, highlighting their coordinated approach in regional conflicts. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump suggested that Russian President Vladimir Putin may be quietly assisting Iran, even as Washington continues military and political support for Ukraine in its war against Moscow. Iran's confirmation of military cooperation with Moscow and Beijing adds a new dimension to the geopolitical standoff, signaling the emergence of a broader strategic alignment as the confrontation between Tehran, Washington, and its allies intensifies. Israel's missile shield could be facing unprecedented pressure. According to a report by US outlet Semaphore, Israeli officials have warned Washington that the country is running critically low on ballistic missile interceptors as the war with Iran intensifies. The warning reportedly came as Iranian missiles and drones continue targeting Israeli territory and US allied sites across the Middle East. At the center of the battlefield is Israel's multi-layered air defense network, including the world-famous Iron Dome. Designed to intercept incoming rockets and drones, the system has long been considered Israel's crown jewel. But the growing volume of Iranian projectiles is forcing Israeli air defense units to fire interceptors at a relentless pace. Military analysts say the strategy of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps may be simple: overwhelm the shield. Cheap drones and lower-cost missiles are being launched in waves, forcing Israel to fire highly expensive interceptor missiles in response. The financial imbalance is stark. A single Iranian missile or drone can cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But some Israeli anti-ballistic interceptors can cost up to $3 million each. With repeated barrages over the past 2 weeks, analysts estimate Israel's war effort may already be costing around $200 million per day, pushing the total price of the conflict to more than $3 billion since February 28th. US officials say Washington has long been aware that Israel's interceptor stockpiles were limited. One official told Semaphore the situation was expected and anticipated. The United States insists its own missile defense inventory remains sufficient, even as it continues supporting Israeli operations. Israeli media say the report of a critical interceptor shortage remains unconfirmed, noting that Israel still operates multiple layers of defense, including fighter jets and long-range missile interceptors. But as the war continues, Iran's relentless drone and missile campaign could turn the battlefield into a test of endurance, where the side that runs out of money and missiles first may face the greatest strategic risk. On Sunday, the Israeli government approved a special allocation of 2.6 billion shekels, about $825 million, for the purchase of what officials described as urgent security supplies, according to Channel 12. The broadcaster reported that the funds were cleared to meet an immediate operational need during the ongoing war with Iran, with the government expected to amend its 2026 spending plan to finance the emergency procurement. The move follows a report by US news outlet Semaphore, which cited American officials as saying Israel is running critically low on ballistic missile interceptors. According to the officials, Washington had been aware for months that Israel's interceptor capacity was limited, although the United States itself is not currently facing similar shortages. The pressure on Israel's military inventory comes as the financial cost of the war continues to surge. Channel 12 reported that the conflict has already cost Israel around 22 billion shekels, or roughly $7 billion. Of that amount, about 12 billion shekels, around 3,081 billion, has been spent on munitions, while another 5 billion shekels, approximately 159 billion, has gone toward operational costs for combat aircraft. According to a report by U.S. outlet Semaphore, Israeli officials have warned Washington that the country is running critically low on ballistic missile interceptors as the war with Iran intensifies. The warning reportedly came as Iranian missiles and drones continue targeting Israeli territory and U.S. allied sites across the Middle East. At the center of the battlefield is Israel's multi-layered air defense network, including the world-famous Iron Dome. Designed to intercept incoming rockets and drones, the system has long been considered Israel's crown jewel. But the growing volume of Iranian projectiles is forcing Israeli air defense units to fire interceptors at a relentless pace. Military analysts say the strategy of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps may be simple: overwhelm the shield. Cheap drones and lower-cost missiles are being launched in waves, forcing Israel to fire highly expensive interceptor missiles in response. The financial imbalance is stark. A single Iranian missile or drone can cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But some Israeli anti-ballistic interceptors can cost up to $3 million each. With repeated barrages over the past 2 weeks, analysts estimate Israel's war effort may already be costing around $200 million per day, pushing the total price of the conflict to more than $3 billion since February 28th. U.S. officials say Washington has long been aware that Israel's interceptor stockpiles were limited. One official told Semaphore the situation was expected and anticipated. The United States insists its own missile defense inventory remains sufficient, even as it continues supporting Israeli operations. Israeli media say the report of a critical interceptor shortage remains unconfirmed, noting that Israel still operates multiple layers of defense, including fighter jets and long-range missile interceptors. But as the war continues, Iran's relentless drone and missile campaign could turn the battlefield into a test of endurance, where the side that runs out of money and missiles first may face the greater strategic risk. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi told Al-Arabi Al-Jadid that Tehran is ready to form an investigative committee with regional countries to examine recent attacks. He emphasized that Iran's military actions are aimed solely at American bases and interests, not civilian or residential areas. Araghchi suggested that some attacks on civilian targets in Arab countries may have been orchestrated by Israel to undermine relations between these nations and Iran. He stressed that Iran has not targeted civilians in the region.
We are ready to form an investigative committee with regional countries regarding the targets that have been attacked. Our attacks only target American bases and interests in the region. The Americans have built a drone similar to our Shahed drone called Lucas, which is completely compatible with it, and through it, targets in Arab countries are attacked. Israel is likely behind attacks on civilian targets in Arab countries to damage these countries' relations with Iran.
Highlighting a technological dimension of the conflict, Arakci claimed that the United States has developed a drone named Lucas, modeled after Iran's Shahed drones and fully compatible with them. He asserted that Lucas drones have been used to strike targets in Arab countries, raising concerns about covert US operations. Issuing a stern warning, Arakci stated that if Iran's energy facilities are attacked, Tehran will target the facilities of American companies in the region. This underlines Iran's position that any assault on its infrastructure will prompt direct retaliation. On the prospect of peace, Arakci said, "The end of the war depends on ensuring that it does not happen again and paying compensation." Iran frames the resolution as conditional on accountability, signaling a hardline stance while leaving the door open for negotiation. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has announced the 53rd wave of Operation True Promise 4, launching a fresh barrage of hypersonic missiles and strike drones targeting US military assets across the region. According to the IRGC, the attacks were aimed at American command infrastructure and regional bases supporting operations against Iran. One of the key targets was Al Dhafra Air Base in the United Arab Emirates, a strategic facility used by the US, UAE, and French militaries. Satellite images circulating online suggest that several aircraft hangars at the base were hit during the strike. The base hosts high-value reconnaissance and strike platforms used for surveillance and operations across the Gulf region. Images indicate possible damage to hangars, believed to house MQ-4C Triton reconnaissance drones, MQ-9 Reaper strike drones, and the UAE's Sabi Global Eye airborne early warning aircraft. If the equipment was inside the hangars at the time of the strikes, analysts estimate the potential losses could exceed $1.7 billion in housed aircraft alone.
With God's grace, continuous and powerful attacks against targets, centers, and interests of the United States and the Zionist regime will continue until the aggressor surrenders and is punished.
Iran also claims its strikes extended to US military infrastructure in Bahrain, including facilities linked to Isa Air Base, as part of the same operation. Iranian officials say the attacks were carried out using a combination of Fatah hypersonic missiles, Qadr ballistic missiles, and kamikaze drones. At the same time, the IRGC says its air defense network intercepted 3 armed enemy drones near Tehran, destroying them before they could enter the capital's airspace.
3 armed enemy drones were successfully shot down before they could carry out their operation.
While the exact scale of damage remains unconfirmed, the strikes highlight the growing drone and missile dimension of the conflict, with key US bases in the Gulf now directly exposed to Iranian long-range strike capabilities. Iranian authorities revealed a confession from a detained terrorist outlining the enemy's next move. The suspect said, "We were told to enter the field after the US and Israel attack and create chaos." Officials claim the American-Israeli front has designed an 8-stage plan to disintegrate Iran, currently in its 4th stage.
They told us that when the US and Israel attacked and Shulugia reappeared, we should go into the field and do our job. There were 40-50 ropes. We were supposed to bring 2,000 ropes, but I don't know how many we brought. They didn't tell us the time. We were waiting for Shulugia to reappear.
Iranian security forces have arrested dozens on charges of espionage, links to foreign entities, and plotting unrest amid rising war tensions. Over 50 people were detained for allegedly leading riots or attacking public and private property. Authorities said national security is a red line and promised firm action against anyone undermining citizen safety. Two suspects were accused of sending coordinates of sensitive locations to Israel's Mossad and filming restricted sites for opposition media. Authorities seized firearms, bladed weapons, a hand grenade, and ammunition, and said 11 individuals were shot after resisting arrest. Multiple terrorist and mercenary cells were dismantled in Mazandaran, Razavi Khorasan, Khuzestan, and Kerman provinces. Officials said these groups provided information on military sites and economic infrastructure to what they described as the aggressor enemy. Iran's Ministry of Intelligence confirmed investigations into all detainees are ongoing, emphasizing that any attempt to create chaos or threaten the nation will be met with strong, coordinated measures to prevent the next stage of foreign-engineered unrest. A new maritime flashpoint is emerging in the Middle East. Yemen's Houthi movement has warned it could block the Bab el-Mandeb Strait if it decides to enter the conflict in support of Iran. The strategic waterway connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden, forming a crucial gateway to the Suez Canal, one of the world's busiest trade corridors. Any blockade here could disrupt global shipping routes between Europe and Asia. The warning comes as the regional conflict escalates following US-Israel strikes on Iran on February 28th. Iran has already retaliated with missile and drone attacks on Israeli targets and US bases across the region. At the same time, the war has effectively shut the Strait of Hormuz, through which nearly a fifth of global oil supplies normally pass, triggering a major disruption in energy markets. Now, analysts warn that a Houthi move in the Red Sea could trigger a second choke point crisis for global shipping. Officials from Yemen's Houthi movement, also known as Ansar Allah, say military intervention remains under consideration. If that decision is made, the first step could be a naval blockade targeting vessels linked to the United States and Israel.
Once the decision to intervene is made, the first step could be the official declaration of a naval blockade against the United States and the Zionist regime. Merchant vessels and warships, including aircraft carriers, destined for the U.S. soil and the occupied territories could therefore be stopped. Another measure under consideration is a complete closure of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait to ships bound for Israeli ports.
Such a move would dramatically widen the conflict beyond Iran and Israel. With the Strait of Hormuz already disrupted, a shutdown of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait could place two of the world's most critical maritime choke points under pressure simultaneously, raising fears of a deeper global trade and energy crisis. As conventional fighting intensifies in the Middle East, cyber operations are rapidly emerging as a parallel battlefield. Reports of a major cyber attack attributed to Iran targeting a US company highlight how digital incidents can spill into economic and national security domains. Experts say cyber tools are increasingly used for signaling, retaliation, and disruption, turning critical business infrastructure into frontline assets during geopolitical conflicts. Cyber activity often rises during conflicts due to several strategic advantages. Governments and aligned groups can launch attacks with plausible deniability, applying pressure without direct military escalation. Cyber operations also offer asymmetric advantage, allowing relatively low-cost disruption of powerful adversaries. Public outages or data leaks can damage institutional confidence, while attacks on logistics, communications, and supply chains can slow operations linked to wartime efforts. Large cyber incidents typically involve operational disruption, data theft, or long-term network access. Hackers may deploy ransomware, destructive malware, or distributed denial-of-service attacks to halt services and damage operations. In other cases, attackers steal sensitive data, such as emails, contracts, or customer records, and weaponize it through leaks or disinformation campaigns. Some campaigns focus on persistence, stealing credentials, or creating backdoors to maintain long-term access to corporate networks. US companies are often targeted because of their economic influence, technological leadership, and global supply chain connections. Energy, transportation, finance, healthcare, and defense-adjacent industries face elevated risk. Attackers frequently exploit tactics such as spear phishing, unpatched systems, compromised cloud accounts, and supply chain vulnerabilities to infiltrate networks. Security experts warn that organizations must strengthen defenses during geopolitical crises. Key measures include patching internet-facing systems, enforcing multi-factor authentication, limiting privileged access, monitoring unusual login activity, and maintaining tested offline backups. With cyber operations now embedded in modern warfare, preparedness has become essential to limit the impact of attacks on businesses and critical infrastructure. Tensions in the Middle East are widening as Turkey issues a stark warning over Israel's military actions in Lebanon, while NATO air defenses intercept missiles fired from Iran toward Turkish airspace. Ankara says the rapidly escalating conflict involving Israel, Iran, Hezbollah, and the United States risks dragging more regional powers into the war. The latest warning comes as NATO assets in the eastern Mediterranean shot down another ballistic missile launched from Iran that was headed toward Turkey. The incident marks the third time Iranian missiles linked to the ongoing conflict have been intercepted near Turkish territory. Ankara, a NATO member bordering Iran, says it is monitoring the regional war closely and taking measures to protect its airspace. The interceptions come amid a broader escalation following a joint United States-Israel operation against Iran in late February, which triggered retaliatory missile and drone strikes by Tehran across the region. The conflict intensified further after Hezbollah entered the war, describing its attacks on Israel as revenge for the assassination of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Israel has since launched multiple airstrikes on southern Lebanon and Beirut's suburbs, with Lebanon's health ministry reporting at least 826 people killed.
We are frankly concerned that Netanyahu may be moving toward a new act of genocide under the pretext of fighting Hezbollah. The international community must act without delay in the face of the crimes that Israel continues to commit.
Despite the rising tensions, Ankara says it does not want to be drawn into the expanding war, even as missiles linked to the conflict approach its territory.
Turkey does not wish to be part of this ongoing and unjust war, and we are firmly opposed to being dragged into it. Our country possesses very strong deterrence and military capabilities. However, when we think strategically and with prudence, we always know when and where our power should be used.
Turkey is now urging all sides to de-escalate, warning that continued strikes between Israel and Iran risk expanding the conflict far beyond its current front lines. Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, Ali Larijani, alleged that individuals linked to the network of disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein could be plotting a major terrorist attack similar to the September 11th strikes, with the intention of blaming Iran for it. Larijani made the claim in a post on social media platform X, saying he had heard that remaining members of Epstein's network were devising a conspiracy to stage a catastrophic incident resembling 9/11. According to him, the goal of such a plot would be to falsely attribute the attack to Tehran and potentially trigger global outrage and confrontation against Iran.
I've heard that the remaining members of Epstein's network have devised a conspiracy to create an incident similar to 9/11 and blame Iran for it. Iran fundamentally opposes such terrorist schemes and has no war with the American people.
In the same statement, Larijani rejected any association between Iran and such a scenario. Iran fundamentally opposes such terrorist schemes and has no war with the American people, he wrote, attempting to draw a distinction between the Iranian state and the American public. The claim quickly gained attention because it invokes two highly sensitive themes: the trauma of the September 11th attacks and the controversial legacy of Epstein's network. However, Larijani did not provide any evidence or details to support the allegation. A dramatic claim from Washington is raising fresh questions about Iran's leadership. US President Donald Trump has suggested that Iran's newly appointed Supreme Leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, may no longer be alive. Speaking in an interview with NBC News, Trump said he is hearing reports that the Iranian leader may not be alive, a statement that adds a striking new layer of uncertainty to the escalating confrontation between Iran and the United States. In the same interview with NBC News, Donald Trump delivered a blunt message directed at Mojtaba Khamenei. Trump said that if Iran's new supreme leader is alive, he should surrender. The remark comes as tensions between Washington and Tehran continue to surge, with military operations and political rhetoric intensifying across the region. Trump also rejected suggestions of a ceasefire at this stage of the conflict. According to his comments to NBC News, potential terms being discussed are not good enough yet. The US president indicated that negotiations would require stronger conditions, signaling that Washington may maintain pressure on Iran despite growing international calls for de-escalation. The remarks come amid heightened uncertainty surrounding the status of Mojtaba Khamenei, who recently assumed Iran's highest leadership position. Trump's statement suggesting the leader may not be alive has amplified speculation about the internal situation in Tehran, even as Iranian authorities have not confirmed any such developments. By linking surrender demands with questions about Iran's leadership status, Donald Trump has sharpened the political messaging in the standoff with Iran. Analysts say the comments reflect an increasingly confrontational phase in US-Iran relations as both sides exchange signals about their positions in the ongoing crisis. For now, the key point remains the statement itself. In his interview with NBC News, Donald Trump publicly questioned whether Mojtaba Khamenei is alive and declared that if he is, surrender should follow. With tensions already high, the remarks have injected a new and dramatic narrative into an already volatile geopolitical confrontation. A political storm is now brewing inside Donald Trump's own movement. The Iran war is no longer just a battlefield confrontation in the Middle East. It is rapidly turning into a domestic political fight inside the MAGA camp itself, with influential voices from Trump's base openly questioning the direction of the conflict. The most striking warning came from David Sachs, a senior advisor in the Trump administration and the president's AI czar. Speaking on his popular All In podcast, Sachs openly urged Washington to search for an exit strategy from the war as fears grow over a wider regional escalation.
We should try to find the off-ramp. This is a good time to declare victory and get out.
Sachs also delivered a stark warning about how dangerous the conflict could become if it continues to escalate. He suggested that prolonged fighting could push the region toward extreme scenarios and raise fears of catastrophic escalation.
There is a worry about Israel escalating the war by contemplating using a nuclear weapon, which would truly be catastrophic.
At the same time, influential conservative commentator Tucker Carlson says Trump's own voters are growing increasingly uneasy about Washington's role in the war. Speaking to Piers Morgan, Carlson argued that many Trump supporters now feel deeply disillusioned with U.S. foreign policy. Carlson has also escalated the controversy with explosive claims about U.S. intelligence agencies. In a video posted online, the conservative commentator alleged that officials are targeting him because of his views on the war and his contacts in Iran before the conflict began.
So, the other day I found out that the CIA is preparing some kind of criminal referral against me, a crime report, to the Department of Justice on the basis of a supposed crime I committed, talking to people in Iran before the war.
As the war with Iran continues, the geopolitical confrontation abroad is now colliding with political tensions at home. With warnings from Trump allies, criticism from conservative media figures, and growing unease within the Republican base, the Iran conflict is now evolving into a major test of unity inside the MAGA movement itself. This is the moment the myth of American invulnerability in Baghdad was shattered. An Iranian-backed FPV drone maneuvers with chilling ease over the outer defenses of Camp Victoria, finding no resistance as it begins its hunt for a high-value target. The security failure is evident on multiple levels. Flying at a low altitude to bypass traditional radar, the craft cruises over fuel tankers and logistics hubs. There are no electronic countermeasures, no jamming, and no interceptors to stop its deep penetration into the heart of the campus. For minutes, the drone remains unmolested in restricted airspace. This isn't just a breach, it's a total surveillance failure. The Iranian-backed operators are able to conduct a live reconnaissance of the facility's most sensitive infrastructure before deciding exactly where to strike. The assault enters its final, lethal phase. Despite the billions spent on CRAM and sophisticated air defense umbrellas, the drone identifies a reinforced hangar. It moves with a precision that suggests a sophisticated understanding of the base's internal layout. The tactical success of the Iranian assault is undeniable. The drone doesn't just crash into a wall, it actively seeks out the most vulnerable point. It aligns its trajectory perfectly with the open entrance of a bunker, navigating past hardened defenses as if they were non-existent. The final seconds show the ultimate humiliation of U.S. security protocols. The drone enters the bunker interior, delivering its payload into the very center of the facility. This successful bombing marks a paradigm shift in the conflict, proving that even the most fortified U.S. assets are now within reach of precision-guided militia technology. And this is just one part of the story. Prior to this incident, IRGC wreaked havoc on another base. The Middle East is on the edge as Iran's IRGC unleashes Wave 51 of Operation Promised Truth 4. The target? The strategic Al-Kaj airbase in Saudi Arabia. Tehran claims this facility is the nerve center for U.S. aggression, housing the crown jewels of American air power, the F-35 Lightning II and F-16 Fighting Falcon jets. Using a deadly cocktail of liquid and solid fuel missiles, the IRGC says it has struck the very hangars and fuel depots that keep these elite fighters in the sky. This comes just hours after Wave 50, a massive drone swarm, blanketed U.S. bases from Al Dhafra in the UAE to the 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain.
In line with the serial downing of enemy aircraft by the country's air defense fighters, in the past hour, 4 more American Zionist enemy drones were intercepted and shot down by our country's armed forces before carrying out their operations. Accordingly, so far, 118 various reconnaissance, combat, and attack drones have been hunted down by the defenders of Iran's skies since the beginning of the imposed war. A short while ago, the 5th wave of Operation True Promise 4 was carried out with the blessed code Yazara, peace be upon her, against the bases of the terrorist army of America located in Al Dhafra, Fujairah, Jufair, Ali al-Salam, and Al-Azraq, as well as early warning radars deployed in the region that served as protection for the Zionist regime. The operation was executed using destructive and precision-striking drones of the brave aerospace force of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
The numbers are staggering. Iranian air defense units claim they have now downed 118 enemy drones since this conflict exploded on February 28th. The latest trophy? An armed Hermes drone intercepted over Andimeshk, reportedly neutralized by a new advanced defense system that Iran says has broken the US-Israeli aerial advantage. But the tactics are getting even more personal. The Qatam al-Anbiya headquarters has issued a chilling warning. They are moving beyond hardware. IRGC pinpoint drones are now reportedly identifying the exact hiding places of US soldiers across the region, vowing to target every single American terrorist one by one.
Now, the American Zionist enemy, which has reached a dead end in confronting the brave fighters of the armed forces, has cowardly resorted to attacks against non-military industries. We ask people around industrial areas in which Americans are shareholders or individuals who are near the hiding places of American terrorist soldiers to distance themselves from those areas so that no harm comes to them. Our deadly drones are searching point by point for the hiding places of the terrorist soldiers of the U.S. Army in the region, and after obtaining accurate information, they will attack each and every American terrorist in the region.
Israel's missile shield is facing mounting pressure as waves of Iranian strikes continue to hammer its airspace. Officials in the United States say Israel has warned Washington that its supply of key ballistic missile interceptors is running critically low after days of sustained attacks from Iran. With interceptors being fired rapidly to neutralize incoming threats, the skies over Israel are becoming increasingly difficult to defend. The central battlefield question is now stark and urgent. How long can Israel's missile defenses continue to hold under relentless pressure? According to U.S. officials cited by Semaphore, Israel entered this phase of the conflict already carrying limited interceptor reserves. Heavy usage during last summer's confrontation with Iran had already thinned stockpiles before the current escalation began. As missile attacks intensify, long-range air defense systems are now operating under sustained strain, forcing defense planners to weigh how quickly those crucial interceptors are being depleted. The pressure has only grown as Iran continues launching new waves of strikes. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps released footage showing missile launches as part of the Promise of Truth 4 campaign, describing it as the 50th wave of its operation. Each barrage adds to the burden on Israel's air defense network as interceptors are deployed to stop incoming threats before they can strike populated areas or critical infrastructure. U.S. officials familiar with the situation say Washington had been aware of Israel's limited interceptor capacity for months. The sustained tempo of Iranian missile attacks is now testing the endurance of those defensive reserves. Military planners are closely monitoring the pace at which interceptors are being used as the conflict stretches on. Despite the strain, Israel continues to rely on multiple layers of missile defense and aerial interception to protect its territory. Fighter aircraft and defensive systems remain on constant alert, forming a shield designed to stop incoming threats before they reach major population centers. But with missile attacks continuing and interceptor stockpiles under growing pressure, the strategic question now looming over the conflict is increasingly clear: whether Israel's defensive shield can sustain prolonged missile warfare as the confrontation with Iran continues to escalate. A region on a knife edge and a mystery that refuse to die. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has just released a high-stakes ultimatum, declaring they will continue to pursue and kill Benjamin Netanyahu, but adding a cryptic, psychological twist: they will only do so if he is still alive. This is no longer just a military threat. It's a full-scale information war designed to destabilize the Israeli leadership. The statement coincides with the massive 52nd wave of Iran's promised True Operation 4. Under the sacred code O Zainab al-Kubra, the IRGC claims its aerospace force launched a coordinated barrage of heavy missiles, including the hypersonic Fatah and Khorramshahr, targeting what they call Zionist industrial zones in the heart of Tel Aviv. But the scope of this revenge extends far beyond Israel's borders. Tehran claims to have powerfully destroyed 3 major U.S. logistical hubs: Al-Harir Air Base in Erbil, along with the Ali al-Salem and Camp Arifjan bases in Kuwait. They are framing these strikes as direct retaliation for the February 28th strikes on Iranian industrial towns that crippled their sovereign infrastructure. The fate of Netanyahu has become the centerpiece of this propaganda. For days, social media has been flooded with proof of his death, most notably a viral video where a lighting glitch made it appear the PM had 6 fingers. While forensic analysts have debunked this as a simple optical illusion, the IRGC is using the unknown fate narrative to signal a crisis of leadership within the Israeli security cabinet. Jerusalem's response has been a firm proof of life. At a major press conference on March 12th, Netanyahu appeared live to describe the joint US-Israeli campaign, Operation Roaring Lion, as crushing the Iranian regime. He addressed the Iranian people directly, claiming the moment of freedom is approaching as Israel and the US dismantle Iran's industries of death and nuclear infrastructure. This escalation comes under the shadow of a new Iranian leadership. Following the death of Ali Khamenei on February 28th, the IRGC has pledged complete obedience to his son, Mojtaba Khamenei. As the 52nd wave of missiles falls, The world is watching a high-stakes gamble. Can Netanyahu's roaring lion silence the IRGC's true promise, or is the regional war only just beginning? The Middle East is on the edge as Iran's IRGC unleashes Wave 51 of Operation Promise Truth 4. The target? The strategic Al-Kaj airbase in Saudi Arabia. Tehran claims this facility is the nerve center for U.S. aggression, housing the crown jewels of American air power, the F-35 Lightning II and F-16 Fighting Falcon jets. Using a deadly cocktail of liquid and solid fuel missiles, the IRGC says it has struck the very hangars and fuel depots that keep these elite fighters in the sky. This comes just hours after Wave 50, a massive drone swarm, blanketed U.S. bases from Al Dhafra in the UAE to the 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain.
In line with the serial downing of enemy aircraft by the country's air defense fighters, in the past hour, 4 more American Zionist enemy drones were intercepted and shot down by our country's armed forces before carrying out their operations. Accordingly, so far, 118 various reconnaissance, combat, and attack drones have been hunted down by the defenders of Iran's skies since the beginning of the imposed war. A short while ago, the 5th wave of Operation True Promise 4 was carried out with the blessed code Yazara, peace be upon her, against the bases of the terrorist army of America located in Al Dhafra, Fujairah, Jufair, Ali al-Salam, and Al-Azraq, as well as early warning radars deployed in the region that served as protection for the Zionist regime. The operation was executed using destructive and precision-striking drones of the brave aerospace force of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
The numbers are staggering. Iranian air defense units claim they have now downed 118 enemy drones since this conflict exploded on February 28th. The latest trophy? An armed Hermes drone intercepted over Andimeshk, reportedly neutralized by a new advanced defense system that Iran says has broken the US-Israeli aerial advantage. But the tactics are getting even more personal. The Qatam Al-Anbiya headquarters has issued a chilling warning. They are moving beyond hardware. IRGC pinpoint drones are now reportedly identifying the exact hiding places of US soldiers across the region, vowing to target every single American terrorist one by one.
Now, the American Zionist enemy, which has reached a dead end in confronting the brave fighters of the armed forces, has cowardly resorted to attacks against non-military industries. We ask people around industrial areas in which Americans are shareholders or individuals who are near the hiding places of American terrorist soldiers to distance themselves from those areas so that no harm comes to them. Our deadly drones are searching point by point for the hiding places of the terrorist soldiers of the U.S. Army in the region, and after obtaining accurate information, they will attack each and every American terrorist in the region.
The war is also turning economic. Iran is now warning civilians to stay away from industrial zones where Americans hold shares. This signals a terrifying shift, moving from military dogfights to a full-scale assault on the Gulf's critical energy and production infrastructure to force a U.S. withdrawal. Britain is weighing a major maritime move in the Gulf. Reports indicate the United Kingdom is considering sending minehunter drones to the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical oil choke point. The step comes as tensions surge over threats to tanker traffic and rising fears of sea mines in the narrow shipping lane. The proposal, first reported by the Sunday Times, signals that London may soon deploy autonomous systems to help keep the vital corridor open for global energy flows. At the same time, a British warship is already moving into the region. The Royal Navy's HMS Dragon, a Type 45 air defense destroyer, has sailed to reinforce British military presence in the eastern Mediterranean. Defense officials say the deployment strengthens security around key bases and supports Allied operations amid escalating tensions in the Gulf theater. Pressure is also mounting from Washington. US President Donald Trump has called on NATO partners and other major economies to dispatch naval forces to secure Hormuz. In a message on Truth Social, Trump urged nations dependent on Gulf oil to help ensure the strait remains open, signaling a push for a broader international maritime coalition. Many countries, especially those who are affected by Iran's attempted closure of the Hormuz Strait, will be sending warships in conjunction with the United States of America to keep the strait open and safe. We have already destroyed 100% of Iran's military capability, but it's easy for them to send a drone or two, drop a mine, or deliver a close-range missile somewhere along or in this waterway, no matter how badly defeated they are. Hopefully, China, France,